Are you moving out of California or New York and you're trying to decide where to move? Maybe Georgia and Florida are on your radar. Well, I'm here to tell you that life in Georgia and life in Florida are vastly different. And frankly, Florida is a great place to visit, but do you want to live there? I think you need to know what you're getting into. So here are 5 reasons why you don't want to move to Florida. Number 1, the heat. Florida is hot, like 7th circle of hell hot. If you're from the west and you're used to a dry heat, or you're from the north and you consider 82 degrees to be a heat wave, I'm telling you, the heat and the humidity in Florida will fry your brain. Let me give you some perspective here. In Atlanta, the July-August average high is around 90 degrees with 70% relative humidity. The heat index here means it feels like 105 degrees at the hottest part of the day. So in hot Atlanta, we're getting that very high heat index, but only in July and August at the peak of summer. Those are our 2 most humid months. But if you look, most of Florida actually crosses the 100-degree heat index mark sometime around the middle of May, and it'll stay elevated well through October. In fact, it's not uncommon to have 95-degree heat indexes in Florida in November. Florida is one of those places, kind of like Dallas, Texas in the summer. It just never seems to cool off. The other thing about Florida heat is the sun is inescapable. It just pounds you relentlessly. In Atlanta, our dense tree canopy means it's very easy to find shade, and the summer evenings cool off very quickly. But in Florida, you're in a much more exposed, flat landscape, and it's very difficult to find some relief from the sun. Once you step outdoors in the Florida heat and humidity, you will start to sweat within minutes, and you will sweat from every nook and cranny in your body. And if you've never felt what it's like for your butt to sweat, you'll find out real fast in Florida. That's a phenomenon we call swamp butt. My suggestion would be, if you're thinking about making the move to Florida, schedule a week vacation in July or August, go down there and get the full experience of the heat at the peak of summer. It'll blow your mind. You know, whether you're on the Panhandle in North Florida or in Miami in South Florida, it's so much hotter than Atlanta. It's actually kind of difficult to describe. You just have to experience it. Another weather-related Florida problem is the constant threat of hurricanes. If you don't like the idea of boarding up your home, grabbing your pets and your kids and hopping in the car for a long drive north to escape a gigantic hurricane, well, you might just want to move to Georgia instead. If you're interested in knowing more about what the weather is like in Atlanta, I'll put a link up top and also in the description box below to some of our best Atlanta weather videos. The number 2 reason not to move to Florida is Florida Man. You've all seen the headlines about Florida Man doing something utterly insane, usually involving some combination of full nudity, a Camaro, methamphetamines, machetes, and bank robbery. You've also heard the old expression, crazy from the heat. Well, seriously, these are people that have literally been driven insane by the Florida sun. Most people in Florida live in shorts and flip-flops, so when that relentless heat finally pushes them over the edge, there's not much clothing to remove before they go on a naked crime spree. The number 3 reason you don't want to move to Florida: Florida is filled with alligators and giant pythons. An average alligator is 13 feet long and weighs almost 800 pounds, and they can move with terrifying speed. You know, for most people, an alligator is an abstraction. You just can't understand it by looking at a photograph. But when you see alligators in real life, they're frightening. They really are. Every time I'm near an alligator, I just get this sense of dread that comes over me. It's, you know, they could be 100 feet away from me, and I just don't like being around them. Now, gators are not much of a thing in Georgia. I'm originally from Savannah, and all the years I lived there and I visit there regularly, I've seen alligators exactly 2 times in Savannah. But in Florida, there are almost 1.3 million alligators, so you have to assume that any body of water, no matter how small, has an alligator in it. You don't want to be throwing the stick into the lake for the dog to play fetch. There's probably an alligator in there. Pythons are also a huge problem in Florida. The Burmese python is an invasive species and has completely overrun many of the state parks, including the Everglades. Florida used to be filled with rabbits and foxes and raccoons and possums, but not anymore. These pythons eat anything and everything except for alligators. Florida has organized the Florida Python Challenge to encourage people to hunt and kill pythons all over the state. If you see a python, Florida wants it dead. So if you aren't into giant man-eating reptiles, you may want to consider moving to Georgia. Number 4, it's always the same. In Florida, it's always summer. The first time I went to Miami was in December, and I foolishly thought I would need Atlanta December clothes. Well, I was down there just a few hours before I realized I needed to go to Target and buy some shorts and some flip-flops to survive the steamy December heat. So it's always summer. There's no fall leaves. There's no crisp mornings in spring. There's no chance of snow in the winter. It's just always hot. And it's the same as far as the land goes. Florida's just a giant sedimentary plain, so it's just flat. There's no hills. There's no valleys. It's just... And finally, number 5, there's just not much to do in Florida. I know that sounds really strange, but Florida is really designed around the tourist economy. So the restaurants, the activities, the stores, they're always catering to the tourists. If you're used to a large metro area that has a lot of cultural events, lots of great fine dining options, lots of social activities, you may find Florida a bit boring. Now, I've personally met several people who were considering moving to Florida, and they rented a condo down there, and they thought they'd get to know the lay of the land before they purchased the house. And what many of them reported back to me was that, after that initial buzz of moving to that new area, they just got bored with it. Again, if you're thinking of making the move to Florida, you may just want to rent a condo or a house down there for a year and make sure you really like it before you buy. It's a very different kind of experience, and it's definitely not for everyone. As they say, it's a nice place to visit, but you might not want to live there. So as always, if you're thinking of making the move to Atlanta, which I hope you are after watching this video, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the box below. I love to talk to people. I'm just a font of information. I can tell you everything about Atlanta, everything about the state of Georgia. Very conversational, obviously. That's why I make all these videos. So please feel free to reach out. Love to talk to you. Thanks for watching.